All right, hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the application of material videos. So over the last few videos, this is where we kind of got into, and I think from what I remember, this right here is where we ended off at our current kind of overall NQ look through using a lower time frame EVC layered within a higher time frame bias. So in this specific case, right, as you guys know, we had to sideline during a market that, you know, in some cases did deliver very, very well. And if we were trading maybe a 10-minute, a 1-minute, and a 10-second as an entry, then of course there's going to be opportunities within here. However, because of the fact that we were layering that within where we were on a higher time frame, it meant that we had to take a step back, right? So if, for instance, maybe you were following an hourly as your context time frame or as a higher time frame bias system, you know, there's maybe a chance that you might have started trading the market around here. And instead, as we've spoken about multiple times, you might have been in this move inside of this action here within the momentum MBs off of your 1 minute, and you know, maybe you could have been able to catch portions of these moves here because of course, as we all know, as we go through any time frame, there's going to be multiple MMB based entries that can occur and happen inside of these areas, and of course those will create very nice moves. But it was the case that at the moment, given the kind of system that we're approaching with, those did not present those opportunities, and we get to simply sit on the sidelines. Now, as we take a look at the daily here, right, this was those 2 days of the last video. This was literally 8 and 9 where you saw me do nothing on the sidelines, literally nothing. And what's interesting as we move into the current day, right, is that what we have here is we have a market that's now breaking down. So of course, just like it did back here, this is a market that is likely or potentially moving into a distribution, right? So previously, if you look at this area on the left here, this is like that stage one. And you could argue that maybe because we didn't break down kind of below here and close, that there was never a distribution, right? So maybe you could have labeled some area in here as a distribution, or you might have waited for this stage one to become a distribution. If you remember, we became bullish again. We had an overall bullish context. And then as price broke kind of above, where would it be? Yeah, right here, over this candle right here for the stage one, as it kind of broke through this area, this stage one put in motion this, and of course, every single day since that point, when I made these videos, so basically every single one of these days, were opportunities to trade, including these 2 down days where, as you saw yourself, nothing happened, and as a result, nothing was taken. Now, in this case here, if we continue following the underlying stage 1s and 2s, because even though this might look similar to this, what's actually occurring and how it's happening is a little bit different. What I mean by that is, let me get rid of this. What I mean by that is if we kind of follow the stage 1s and 2s, so 1 into 2, 1 into 2, 1, what you can kind of see is that at the moment, the stage 1 that's occurring is actually breaking down already for what could be a distribution. So even though this might not be enough of a distribution for you to begin to follow short, given the fact that you're trading such a low time frame, you could already consider going short on this market. Now, personally, I wouldn't. I'd be in a waiting phase where I would wait for either this to go into a stage 1 that start to move higher, or for this to break down and let this 50 kind of maybe start sloping downwards more, or kind of break down below the 50, at which point maybe I would then consider trading this. So I would wait for that candle. Now what we get is we get this very, very clear move down, which likely solidifies distribution. So again, this is an example of a day where you would have shown up and done nothing. So again, the 10-minute would have never gone into accumulation, never was an accumulation, never was in a clear market to accumulate. The daily is still breaking down. So this becomes one of those areas where you kind of wait to allow the price to become either bearish or redefine itself bullish. But remember, we're on a lower time frame, which means any day we show up, there are technically going to be opportunities to the upside and the downside, because any one of these kind of moves down with the averages act as potential entries. It's just a question of, is it worthwhile to trade for us or not? Now, taking a look at this, let's go back to the daily here. Right, you have a market that's now very likely in distribution, which means from here on out, you could consider going into selling, right? This is literally preference. If you want to go into selling, you could consider being a seller inside of this action here. I'd probably wait for this to redefine itself a little bit or go sideways a little bit. So I'd wait. You can see it starts breaking down. And then it kind of starts pausing. So right now what we're getting is we're getting likely, actually, right, just looking at this, and I already know it's going to go down, but what you're getting, what you could refer to as an MMB1. You're building the momentum MB of a higher time frame here. So right now we're actually moving into what could be a bearish market because we are breaking down below the 10 and 20. We're creating a distribution MB out of the underlying stage 1s. The stage 2s are now moving to the bottom side, stage 1, stage 2, stage 1, stage 2. So the anticipation is delivery to the lower side, which means that at the moment we actually move into what would be a lower time frame bearish-based market. So what that means is that on any given day going forward, we would actually be okay with potentially taking the bearish context to the downside. And if we go ahead and mark the next 9:30 a.m. of the next day, which would be here, that's around where I would want to consider the overall context of this market and begin to trade my EVC to the downside if a downside EVC presents itself, right? So as we come into this 9:30, what we see is we actually see a move that starts an accumulation. This is an accumulation MB right here. Maybe there's an easier way to label this instead of making these over and over again. But you have an accumulation MB. You have the MMBs, MMB1, kind of this MMB2, maybe an MMB3, right? So maybe there's a 3 here. So overall, you are in a bullish little context here, but this is a context I would not want to trade bullish because of the underlying idea of where we are, which means that currently, you know, this market is in distribution phase and it wants to distribute, which means go lower. So I'm waiting till 9:30 to see if this wants to start breaking down in some way, right? What you can also see at this point is you have kind of this little area that's being built here, which means that we could get even a distribution through this low here as we come into 9:30. So we're going to draw that out because, you know, what's happening is you have a stage 1, stage 2, a stage 1. So clearly a breakdown here below the 10 and 20 could be the start of a distribution. That's an important thing to remember. And well, it's 8:30 and we're actually getting that distribution. Here's a distribution MB. Now this can very easily still be an accumulation, right? But we're more so flavored to go to the bearish side because that's what we want to see. So we're going to wait till 9:30 kind of gets there. So you can see just playing around, maybe moves into accumulation. And now it looks like we're a candle before 9:30, so we can swap to the 1 minute. We'll look at the 10 minutes to remember where we are. But overall, if you kind of notice this, stage 1 to 2, 1. So right now we kind of have this idea of like, if price can break kind of below this area here, it'll probably be in a stage 2 delivery to the downside off the 10 minute. And if it kind of breaks above here, you're likely in accumulation. And I probably don't want to follow it at all because at the moment, if I'm layering my trades within the timeframes I'm working with, a break above here wouldn't make much sense to trade because it's still likely going to be part of this MMB off the daily to start a bearish move at some point. So very simply, I have the day or the action that I would trade outlined for myself, right? This is the difference of how a lot of people think in terms of many people want to try to let the market kind of show them everything and then react. Instead, I literally have the definitionally what I need to see from the market to trade, and I allow that to come to me. So those are two very, very fine lines, very, very niche lines, very different, but they are what make all the difference for me and what I've seen make the difference for everyone else. So yeah. So we'll watch the next 10 minutes on the 1 minute just because, you know, it's at like a crucial point where if it starts moving higher, I don't really give a shit. I won't do anything. But if it starts to kind of break down and make a distribution here, right? Maybe move into a distribution MB and even pause here, that could be a call for a very bearish market. This actually might be a market condition that could be used as bearish because what's happening, right? You're getting an overall distribution or you're getting a bullish market play out on the top side, which is fine. You have this move higher on the top side, which, you know, none of that really matters. And you're kind of stage 1ing now around the 10-minute potential distribution, which could be kind of in or around this area here. It might even be a little bit closer up because you have to think about the stage 1 of a higher time frame like so, right? So if we're breaking down and then we're starting a stage 2 of a 10-minute. So we'll keep that in mind. But at the same time, what you're getting is you're getting this like kind of move to the downside. This was a distribution. And from there, right, again, you're playing in a choppy area, but what you're also doing is the average is kind of moving to the potential of, you know, accumulation, which I don't care about, or for the potential of distribution, which would meet a lot of the kind of entries that we generally saw over the last few times that we've traded, but to the top side, right? So if you kind of notice it this way, you can see the same thing. You get those kind of moves, the move comes down, it kind of plays at that 50, the 50 starts sloping up, and then as price pauses here, there could be an opportunity. This is exactly the same thing over and over again. This would just be on the downside. So we'll see if an MMB wants to create itself. This is 9:30, this is the open. And again, we are inside of this kind of little choppy range, which means I would simply wait. I would not trade this action here at all. And then you get this move down. So what I would assume right now is on that higher time frame, this is already acting as a distribution MB because remember, we're coming out of a potential stage 1. We don't need to wait for a candle close necessarily. We can assume that a stage 1 is maybe happening inside of this area, right? And based on what's happening here on the V, so the V time frame, which is our 1 minute, we can allow that to become either a setup that's worth taking or something that's just complete shit. And you can see we come down below the 50, we kind of come right up. You can, again, as I said before, you could consider this as an MMB and already start to look for trades inside of these areas here. and start looking to take those to the downside. I personally wouldn't, because it's not clear enough for me. This would just simply be a weighting based market, because again, for me, I like things that are extremely clear, things that are just screaming the fact that if I take an entry here, it's perfectly fine, it's perfectly valid. I don't really have to question it that much. So I prefer that, right? But there are multiple ways to make this work for yourself, as I've showcased in multiple videos already. Even the fact that if you're based on the kind of person you are, you might have been someone that traded during this entire action right here. I saw people within the mentorship make money during this time. For me, this is not the kind of market I want to trade because of where it was on a higher time frame bias specifically, but there's nothing wrong with trading it in that case. But at the moment, more than happy to trade, so waiting for this thing to become a better setup. Let's see if it does that. So you can see it just kind of starts moving into accumulation. It actually does move into accumulation on the minute. So at the moment, there's nothing for me to touch here or do whatsoever. I can even keep an eye on the 10-minute a little bit. Okay, so it actually looks like it might distribute here. So we'll keep looking at the 1 minute. But again, I don't care about the bullish side here because I have an underlying idea about what I want to see from the market. So you can see this could be an accumulation MB right now off that higher, but I'm waiting, right? In this case, it looks like it instantly turns around and falls right off. So again, if you wanted to trade this area right here, be my guest. There's going to be trades inside of here, and this could be a very nice delivery. But for me, it's a waiting game. But now what we're getting is a kind of a surefire sign that we're distributing on that 10-minute chart, which means that right now, even on the 1 minute as our V, we're moving into distribution right here off the V. Make that blue. We can make this actually white, because I've been using that for my context time frame. So the context time frame went into its bullish move, started making distribution, and on the V time frame, which is my blue, it's actually now in a distribution. And all I can do is wait for this to maybe pause on the falling averages now, because we have a clear bearish cycle in front of us. So we wait. Price makes a very clear stage 2 and then begins to pause on the, in this case, falling averages, right? Same thing as we saw before. Makes a move, falls to the rising averages. Can you trade this? Of course, right? This starts to build out your kind of little VMMB. There you are. You're in that same exact area. So again, I'll keep it flipped to this side because, well, I want you to get used to seeing it on both sides because it's the exact same thing. But this would now become a valid market to trade short. So look at the 10-second, and what do I want to see? I want to see a flush out and the buildup of supply, and that supply should lead to MBs that are worth sell stopping. So it looks like we actually have that built out right now as we're looking at this. So here we are on the E micro, and once again, right, you have the sell stop opportunities, and actually this on its own as is looks like a fine place to take a sell, throw the stop. Let's edit. Well, probably like somewhere here, something like this. And we will look for a 1-to-1. It's been a while since I made one of these videos, so I forgot the exact management rules, but there we go. And that's it. We'll see if we get tapped in. So price just comes right up. We can let this build out this move if it wants to become a distribution-based move or not. Don't necessarily know. This high still looks very good, or this low in this case looks very good for sell stopping. So again, this is now the sell stop the low principle based on the buy stop the high principle in the portal. And I think it looks pretty good here, right? Kind of distribute inside this area, and now honestly, it's pausing a little bit, so sell stopping through this low makes a lot of sense. Nothing wrong with that. Throw the stop kind of behind this little area of distribution, 1-to-1. Same thing as we did before. And you'll see the setup is, you can see the same exact thing as what we've done before. Nothing new, nothing special, nothing different, but we're just on the sell side. So it sell stops us in. We wait for our 1-to-1. Brings out our 1-to-1. So this would now be, what day is this? 227. Is the first day that we end up actually trading. The other days we actually just ignore price until it becomes clear again to trade. We take our plus 0.5R off that initial trade. Our stop loss would still be here. And same thing as we've done before for the other management rules to make it as simple as possible. Let a move kind of happen, let it pull back, let it move through the low, and move the stop loss to break even. Otherwise, let this thing come back and stop us out. There's a move. Nice pullback. Watch for the move through the low now. Same thing as before. Wait for just a clear move through the low. Just ignore all this. Doesn't really matter what it does. You get a move through the low. We can move our stop loss to break even. And now we can use the 10-second to manage our trade the same way that we've done before. We look for around that 5, 6 RR. So we let this thing play out as it needs to. If it comes back and stops us out, then that's fine. If it doesn't, then great. Okay, so we're in the trade. We're at around 5 RR right now. This low is at 3, so we just wait for higher high, higher low. Here we are. We're starting to get our lower highs and lower lows, so we throw our stop. Again, same rules we did before. Nothing new, no special management, literally just basic lower highs, lower lows with the action. Lower high, lower low. lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Could even use this area here. And then you get this very, very heavy runaway move, right? So this is the question of having 8RR versus 12RR. So this is where I might use just the impulse to get out right here, right at the candle, like actual candle low. Same thing here, candle low. Same thing here, candle low for a 50% partial. And beautiful. You know, you can kind of tell when price is going to stop you out. So the first stop out comes at, oh, this actually should be in anchored mode. Let me anchor it. Here we are. So this first stop out is at 11.92. So let's do the math, 11.92, but we've taken 50% off already. And now we're taking 50% off of what's remaining. So it's a 2.98 RR gain. Let's record that, plus 2.98 R. And the rest we still have at this stop, so we'll wait and see if it makes a lower high, lower low. It does, so we can throw our stop behind here. And we can manage the rest as that goes on. We can actually keep an eye on the 1 minute too, just in case it creates another MMB to trade. So actually it did create a tradable MMB potentially here, but we didn't really trade it. We kind of skipped it. Maybe it makes another one up here, so we'll wait. But we'll keep watching the 10-second for our management of basic and easy higher highs and higher lows. And we get stopped out right there at 11.1 R. So 11.1 R, we took 50% off initially at 1 to 1. We took off 50% for our first partial, so we gained 2.77 RR off of that trade. And that trade's complete. We'll go back to the 1 minute and we'll follow it from here. So at the moment we went into distribution, MMB1, what appears to be MMB2, so we wait for MMB3 now, or MMB2 as well. You can see we don't have the cheat code 5 EMA met yet, so I'll wait. Maybe it comes and meets it. It does. Beautiful. We have the buildup of another MMB kind of area here. Let's take a look at the 10-second. Same thing as before. Let this thing potentially move into some distribution beyond the supply line, or in this case, the demand line. So the way it works now is buyers are continuously trying to pinpoint lows over and over again. They build up a ton of orders at this low, just above, and a little bit below, which means that if supply comes in and starts to sell this off, those act as phenomenal entries for us to wipe and to go into a new stage 2. Same thing as the portal material, adding that in this video now because that portal material has been made a lot more clearer to you in the most recent portal understanding of what it looks like for basically the overall delivery of the market from a standpoint of floating supply, supply buildup, why information is so poor in the overall space, and how true demand buildup and demand coming in then clears that area for that stage 2. Now you have the same thing but flipped. Here's your stage 2 potential move, that's that high, acting as the same thing, floating supply, but in this case, because this is the actual market, this is now floating demand, 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 that gets ran by supply is what we're looking for. So same thing goes, we wait for the distribution to happen. It kind of starts happening beautifully. It kind of starts moving just to this demand line. Let's take a look at the 1 second to see if there's some kind of buy the low buildup that we have. You kind of have this guy right here. Let's see if it builds up. Selling kind of doesn't really come in, so we'll wait. You can see this kind of get drawn out, right? Oh, so this actually starts building out perfect supply, but you can see the demand continues to come into the market. We can take a look at the 10-second, make sure that everything looks good. This is still a very clear flush. Make sure the 1 minute is still moving into an MMB. It is. So coming to the 10-20, still very clear for a trade. So as long as this can move into some kind of distribution, I think it's going to be fine to trade. So we wait, moves into distribution and pauses. Let's take a look at the 1 second. You can see we're moving beyond the supply line now. If we kind of draw this out further, that supply line is now building up a point of where, that demand line, moving through it, we're building up a buy the low principle. Kind of plays around, plays around, plays around. Don't really have a good low that we can use just yet. Well, actually, now that we're looking at this, right, this low is looking pretty good. And again, you have the same thing we saw before where you have some distribution starts happening. We're on the downside of price. You can see the 50 is like kind of getting ready to slope down. So this is one of those examples where, this is the move that I would expect if I was to get tapped into this sell, protect some of the distribution that kind of happened here, look for that 1-to-1, and then we'll see we get tapped in. So plays around, taps us in, we wait for our 1-to-1. Yeah, we let this do whatever. If it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Doesn't really matter. Okay, we get our plus 0.5 R. Same thing goes as before. We have a stop loss at this point right here. We allow price to go, pull back, move through the low, and we can move to break even. Starts a move, pulls back, let it move through the low now. There's your pullback. And it does not stop us out yet, but it looks like it was about to. So this simply becomes a 0 RR win. And again, or a 0 break-even trade. Now, some people have asked me, I don't know if it wasn't clear enough, like why is this plus 0, not minus 0.5? And the simple reason for that is because if you go through the portal material and you do the math as it's taught, if your first trade is being taken out at 1 RR, which is exactly what we do. So if we take out a partial at 1 RR, right, then you have mathematically 1 RR, you take off 50%. That's a 0.5 RR gain. So this makes you 0.5 R. And then you have 50% of the position left. So instead of this being a minus 1 R, you have 50% of the position left, which is minus 0.5 R. So if you get stopped out at the normal place of stop out, and if you run through the math that was actually taught in the members portal, where I walked you through the actual kind of equation for doing your RR and the amount of position left, this cancels out for a 0. Okay, that is how that kind of functions. So for anyone that was wondering that or trying to figure out how that works, that is exactly how it works. Let's go back to the 1 minute chart and see where we are. So on the 1 minute chart, we are kind of, we are building that MMB. It's still building that MMB, but you can see in this case here, it's kind of failing down. We'll give it some time here. Maybe it becomes a clear MMB, maybe it doesn't. It kind of falls right to the 20 and does not turn around. So then this kind of moves into accumulation. So again, this is one of those areas where as we move into what could be an accumulation, we simply allow price to now maybe become a distribution later and start trading it again, or we stop trading it entirely. It's still only like 10 a.m., so we're still good with timing. So we wait and let this become a distribution, or we stop trading entirely. So moves into a stage 1. So we wait. Okay, so this is one of those areas where if we can go sideways here for even 1 candle, there could be a very nice trade in here because again, we have an accumulation. We have a little momentum cycle that played out to the accumulation side, which can happen. We have a low that just went into distribution. We have that happening right around this area, just as the 50 is coming down as well. We have an overall bearish market. Remember, this here was a distribution MB of that higher time frame. There's your white, that's that 10-minute distributions. Here you are. And right now we're very likely building up the MMB1 of the 10-minute, which is great because that's going to create a distribution here that we can start following and see if it goes sideways for a little bit or some kind of sideways based candle. This is harder to trade, so I'd probably just ignore this. I'd let the 1 minute kind of maybe subside and come down a little, just like this. This is a perfect kind of area, a perfect kind of example of exactly what we've seen before inside of these application material videos already, right? So inside of the, where is this? Inside of the application material videos that you've already seen, up to 9 at the moment, right? You've seen a number of examples where, we'd even consider a trade inside of this area just as it's at that 10 and 20 because of what it means in terms of where the market is overall, right? So this is the beauty of having rules that are consistent, but allow you to basically flow with the underlying money that's coming into the market. So we'll go back to the 10-second here. Here's your stage 2. We're flushing out a little bit. You can see in this case, right, the flush out just came to the 20, which is still okay with me, right? I would have preferred maybe a little bit deeper, but that's okay because now we're coming right to that supply line. I mean, we're basically building, the demand line. We're basically building up like a sellable low here, literally in front of us, right? The most clear sellable low, we throw the stop behind, we look for that 1-to-1, and we see if this wants to tap us in. Taps us in, so we look for that 1-to-1 now. And takes us out for a -1. Now we already know this is building out that move, so the question is, are we building out a clear enough move to sell this? Let's see if it does so. Kind of comes right up, so we'll go back to the 10-second as this builds out. You can see it's kind of building out this little area here, very likely on the 1 minute, something like that. So we'll see if this wants to build up. You can see it's building up some supply here. This is perfect because it literally looks like it's building up that low on its own as a potential sell. Yeah. So we can take a sell through this low. Starts distributing, it looks like. I'd prefer that it falls down right now if we are still to sell stop this. No, I would cancel this and we'll go back to the drawing board. Back to the 1 minute chart to see where we are. So you can see we are building that MMB. This does reach a little bit high up above that average, but this is still in that tiny like last second area where this could act as an entry. So again, what we're looking at is this is an MMB1. Here's your distribution MB right there. And it's happening right at that 10 and 20 as they're just falling down right at the 50 that's ready to fall down. So the idea here is if you're getting a move, it's likely to do something like this, right? So that's something I'd be willing to trade. Otherwise, if it's wrong, we might not even get a trade, or it'll just come up and then make another distribution further up or in a different area. So I think this looks really good for a potential trade, even though it might seem like the averages are not like lined up perfectly. So it needs to kind of distribute now, right? So it starts coming down, pauses. I'd wait for it to come down a little bit deeper like that. And the little pause, yeah, this looks like it wants to create a perfect kind of sellable move here to the downside. You can see it's just coming off of that 50 that was coming up. Now it's distributing through, throw the stop kind of above some of the areas behind it, and 1-to-1. We'll see if we get tapped in. We do. We look for our 50% at that 1-to-1 now. So we wait. So in this case, you can see we're pausing at this area a lot, and we're building up another sellable low that's really, really clear. So this is one of those examples where we sell the sellable low, we throw this above, 1-to-1, and we move our stop loss to this point here, which means we take this out at break even, right? Let's see what this does. Comes up, and it does not stop us out. And then again, this can do whatever. Okay, so it actually stops us at break even. So that's great, right? So again, rules that allow us to manage our risk and actually reduce our bottom line risk, even though it looks like, it might have been a loss or even still could be a loss. But now our setup is set up down here, still looks very good for distribution. You could even consider a sell here, but I think I'll leave this as is and see if it distributes into this. If it starts coming down, I was gonna say we can probably sell this low now instead. So this is an area where we're selling inside of an MB. So we can think about this on a higher time frame as you have a distribution, but we're selling inside of the MB because, well, in this case, I think the move looks perfectly fine in terms of where we are with the overall kind of look of this thing. So we'll see if we tap in, same thing as before, in that distribution. Yeah, and it kind of comes up. I'll probably ignore this now, go back to the 10-second. And here we are, back to waiting. Let's see if this wants to distribute again. It does, it comes right below all of that. 1 second should be building out a perfect kind of low to sell stop. Yeah, you kind of have this low here. Maybe give it a little bit of time, see what if it plays around. This looks perfectly fine. I think sell stopping, this low, or even you can sell stop this low now. It's perfect, like it looks good in this case. Throw my stop behind here, look for the 1-to-1. So in this case, I wouldn't be in this trade yet until this takes out this low. Let's see if it does, probably will, there we go. And now we're in this sell, looking for that 1-to-1. So we wait, and that's a very beautiful thing to see, but also a great demonstration of exactly what I've spoken about before, which is that even when you're a profitable trader, you are going to be taking things where you get tapped in and get taken out, and it's completely normal, right? The faster you understand that it's completely normal and logical and good, the faster you'll make money. And ultimately, honestly, looking back at this, I probably shouldn't have traded here based on where it is. So this was a mistake on my part, but that's okay because I make mistakes too, and I'll wait for the next stage 2 to the downside, the trade. So we get this little distribution, and I'll wait for a pause now. Comes down into that distribution MB. So clearly this is the distribution MB now. This was completely wrong. You kind of have that stage 1 in this area. There's your stage 2 distribution through that spot there. And once again, we wait for kind of that stage 1 off of the rising, in this case, falling MBs. Maybe one more candle. Very hard to trade. I'd probably ignore that. Maybe this MMB1 builds out a little bit more like that. And this MMB1 here becomes the logical kind of area and trade that we can end up taking. So you have the supply 1, supply 2 is building. So supply MB2, double MB. Jump to the 1 second, take a look at what we have. And yeah, I'd give this a little bit of time. Maybe it kind of creates a low here. It kind of does. You can see there's a little low being built. Oh, I was gonna say I can take a sell through that, but it looks like I'm too late. So what I'll do now instead is I'll wait for another low to build and then take a sell, or I'll just miss out on this trade. So hopefully it comes up just a little bit, maybe even like deeper like this, and then sells off, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't see the low there. There could be another trade here if it comes up a good bit, but it is what it is if we miss it. Comes up a good bit, pauses, and we have a low. I think this low is perfectly fine. It's on the later side of here, but again, floating demand trade. So if this trade is gonna work anyway, then this is kind of the last chance to get in for it to work. So we do get tapped in, we look for our 1-to-1. Same thing as before, keep it very simple. Looks like we do not get stopped out, and we do get stopped out. And this would actually be my 3 losses on the day. So what's very interesting is like, you know, I think this keeps going lower after this, but nonetheless, you know, I end up taking 3 losses through this area here, and I'd have to stop. Because again, based on the rules that I've kind of pointed out for myself, this is an area where I would personally stop because 3 losses is enough for me to stop on the day. And I'll let this thing play out and do whatever it needs to do for the rest of the day and move till the next day now, which would be the 28th, which is actually, oh, that's today at 9:30 for the start. So there we are. So again, all we did was traded this area here. It looks like we're up on the day overall, which is great to see, but it didn't really matter, right? Because we have things in place that's going to make us money over time, and that's all we have to do. And again, you can see you did have a nice move until the end of the day, up till 4 p.m., which was here. So there was another opportunity to catch like a true trend, especially off of your 1 minute V, because remember, like this is gonna present an absurd amount of opportunity. And notice how like I didn't have to catch the very, very first big down move, because if there's gonna be a down move or there's truly a bearish bias, that market's gonna give you multiple of those kind of opportunities to get in. So that's why it didn't really matter what happened before, and I can simply, you know, go ahead and follow this thing when it becomes a little bit cleaner. Go back to the 10 minute, wait till we get to around that 9:30 a.m. now, so we'll wait. Yep, so you get this, you know, shit action, stage 1 action, nothing really to do. If anyone trades during this time, you're probably gonna be losing money over time. But because again, you're trading a market during a non-liquid session, right? It's just a question of like, are you willing to do that? If so, go for it. But you know, the money that's made in the market is usually made through the main hours of the market themselves, of course. So we're coming up on, there we go, we're 1 candle away from 9:30. And what we see here at the moment, as we're just looking at this, is you do get that kind of, you know, stage 1 move, stage 2 down, stage 1 move. So you are already in somewhat of a distribution. You could be moving in distribution here, which is good to see, because that means that we might have a trade opportunity here. 9:30 opens on this dot right there, and you can see it does set up an MMB trade through there, but you know, it's hard to trade that 9:30 open on the dot, so I probably would have ignored that anyway. But you have a stage 1 distribution, MMB1, and now we're on the downside, so we're in MMB1. If this wants to make a setup, it will somewhere up here. So it comes up MMB2, but comes right up extremely heavily into the averages and above them. So this already is starting to look like a market that's maybe going to be more choppy for this given day, but we'll see what happens. Comes up, so we wait for distribution again, moves into distribution on the falling averages, and actually pauses. So this is a great example of an MMB1 inside of that area, kind of like we spoke about before. Take a look at the 10 second. You have this nice stage 2. It flushes out deeply. This is kind of that major flush. This stage 2 isn't super clear, but that doesn't mean that we can't set up, because we flushed right there to that kind of 20, built the MB, and now we're building literally a low that could be sell stopped as is, like on this day right here. I think this is a fine sell through this 1-to-1, and there we are. See if we get tapped in. We tap in and we tap out instantly for a -1. And you can see it was, you know, it was less than, you know, based on how you manage this thing, if you had a different kind of set stop on this thing, this could have been an easy break even, but it doesn't matter, because in the grand scheme of things, if you have a profitable system, take your break evens, take your losses. Some are going to be losses, some are going to be break even. Sometimes you'll miss out on a win, but overall it's not going to matter, because you have the exact principles you need to just execute this thing over and over and over again until it literally works out for you in the end, because you already know you have a profitable system. So we know this is the MMB of that 1 minute, but you can see in this case it failed. So again, this was that last chance to maybe get in. We got stopped out of that, and now we're back into an accumulation in what we wanted to see to be a bearish market. So we wait. Stage 1 plays around, goes into a distribution MB, pauses, see if it pauses a little bit more on these kind of falling averages. Beautiful pause, right? So something could be developing here. I don't really see an area to trade just yet. Yeah, and just fails back up, nothing to do. Back to back chop, right? Potential distribution, very hard to trade. Goes into accumulation, goes into a momentum cycle on the accumulation side, doesn't distribute or potentially distributes, but then goes up. So you have a bullish market. You know, you probably even go to the 10 minute now, because the 10 minute is probably showing us the story now. Yeah, you have the stage 1 that's moving into accumulation, so it's a waiting game. Kind of moves sideways a little bit. Yep, MMB to the top side now, pauses. So again, when these MMBs happen, I assume these are to actually build a downside push. So this could actually be building a distribution. So again, if you think about this stage 1, stage 2, stage 1, you know, beyond this low is kind of a distribution. So that means the 1 minute might be moving into distribution that might be clear. And you do kind of have this distribution here, MMB. This is actually building an MMB right now as we speak. There you go. This is exactly why I paused to see what's going on inside of there. So the 10-second, you're actually building distribution as is right now as well. And you know, I'm just looking for a sell stop below. You know, you do have this low to sell stop potentially. So there we are. Sell stop the low, throw the stop kind of behind some of the area here, 1-to-1. Same rules as always. See if we get tapped in. Plays around, comes down. That distribution looks like it wants to maybe hold. Needs to sell off now for this to actually be a trade. Kind of comes up, cancel this, go back to 10-second, and keep waiting because we're just flushing out now. Let's look at the 1 minute. This flushes to the falling 20, but we are in a bearish market. So this actually still does look good for a potential trade. Let's see if this now has supply come into it so we can trade it. Yep, so at this point, I'd probably wait for some supply to come in like maybe around here. So I'd wait. Supply comes in just a little bit of a way, you know, kind of comes up again. So again, this is the demand that's holding this market up that might be being absorbed for the supply. And if the supply does come in, then we're gonna be aware of that. Basically, it's gonna show us that. Supply comes in, yeah, this is like an area that I'd be more than happy to sell. Stop just kind of above these areas, just preference 1-to-1. There we are, see if we get tapped in. Price taps us in, we look for our 1-to-1. We get our 1-to-1, so that's a plus 0.5 at the moment. Our stop loss still stays at, there we go, that area right there. Damn, I was hunching my back a lot. I should sit up with your back straight, guys. So we wait for a little move, a pullback, a move lower, and then we can manage. So here's your pullback clearly. See if it comes through this low. You can see it's building another setup right here. Yeah, I'd give it a second to just distribute. There we go. Throw my stop loss to break even. Move to the 10-second. And again, we're looking at kind of that 5-6 RR area. So we wait, let this thing come up or down, doesn't really matter. We come down. We have a stop we can have here at 4.06. I think that's okay, but you know, 5 is what I've noticed. And again, this could just be the build of an MMB to go lower, So I'll allow this the benefit of the doubt to pause on its 4RR and then break down, and then I'll trade it. So there's that pause, and now hopefully it breaks down. Oh, looks like we might actually get stopped out. Wow, holy shit. Well, that's part of the game, right? So in this case, I could have managed a stop to this area here or here and secured another 2.1 R or maybe 2.5. Something I wanted to do was allow this thing to go through an MMB, break down below 5-6 RR, and maybe manage into like a 10 RR, 12 RR, 15 RR gainer. But when you have rules that are a little bit flowy, as in the rules are clear, you know what you're gonna do, you have the things mapped out just like you just saw, and then something like this happens, you have to be okay with that, right? A lot of people don't understand that the way that you build a profitable edge, where by the end of it, you have a big, you know, profitable system and it's going higher and higher, and this looks amazing and everyone will want to do this and replicate it, is you're giving up in some cases 6RR in gains, 8RR, 10RR, 12RR, or whatever it might be. So get used to that and you're going to do much better for yourself. And notice, instead of this being a plus 0.5 plus 2 or 3, that's it. This is all it is. There's nothing more to it. And that's perfectly fine. So yeah, that distribution MMB doesn't hold, and you can see what I was looking for. You know, I was envisioning MMB into continuation, and that would be phenomenal, right? This could put in an insane move lower, and that could have been worth like 12, 15, 16, 20 RR or so, but that's the game we play, right? You have to get used to it. So go back into a little bit of chop, distributes back down. You know, there's a preference here of whether you want to trade this or not. I'm just going to skip it. It's fine. I don't really care. I'll wait for it to become a little bit clearer. This now looks very choppy. Very choppy. I would not follow any of this. Sideways chop, maybe distribution, but very ugly. Sideways chop, and then falls off the face of the earth, but very hard to trade. Maybe creates an MMB here to trade. It does. It's around 12 p.m., so we're okay. So we have distribution into MMB1, MMB2 or 1. We need to literally start making distribution right now if there's going to be a trade here. So we wait. Kind of starts distributing a little bit. Kind of pauses. Let's take a look at the 1 second. You know, you're moving beyond the point of demand. You have this floating demand here. You have probably opportunities here if there's going to be any. So will allow a low to build, maybe 2 more, 3 more candles. You know, I think taking a little bit of risk here through the low is perfectly viable. Throw the stop kind of behind some of this area here and see if we can get to 1-to-1 minimum. If we can't, I probably won't even take another trade in this area just because I'm just going to give it one chance to make this trending move. So it doesn't tap us in, taps us in. We look for the 1-to-1 now. Just plays around a lot. You know, when it's playing around this much, you know, it's oftentimes better to just manage yourself out, but I don't really, haven't been using a rule like that lately, so it's perfectly fine. Close 0.5 on that. So it does end up delivering to that. What time are we at? Okay, so we're still fine on time. We look for a pullback, move through the low, same rules always. Stop loss is currently up here. Now it's at break even. Wow, so this might actually become a nice trade. Let's see what happens. 10-second chart. Around that 5, 6RR, 4, 5, 6RR. Let it deliver if it wants to. Does it stop us out? No, not yet. Yeah, a lot of chop. There's 4 p.m. because again, we want to be out of this. Okay, we still have a lot of time before 4 p.m. We're good. So we wait. We let this thing do whatever it needs to do. Looks like it's just, wow. Okay, so it does make a crazy move down. That's around 6RR, but it doesn't really make a higher, lower, higher, high, and I didn't manage this low. So in this case, it's okay. We'll just leave it as is and let it either come lower or fail, and that's fine. Okay, so it does come lower. And in this case, we have a lower kind of high here we can maybe manage to, which is 4.4. And then we have this lower low. Yeah, I mean, this is the same thing as before. Let it come up to break even. It's fine with the understanding that if this, you know, kind of comes up and then comes down, we're probably talking about a nicer move where we get stopped out somewhere here, and that's worth the potential risk. So let's wait for a new low. Almost makes a new low. We'll wait. Yeah, it looks like we missed it. And stops us out of break even. Just like that. So again, two great examples of our, like, 2 trades that ran 5R or more. So we had that other trade that went 6. This one went 7.28. And just based on the way that it moved, I didn't really have an area to manage, and I wanted to give it the time to make that MMB and then break down into something like insane. And part of doing that means that I get stopped, right? Back at the natural area, which is fine. This is normal part of the game. And the faster you can accept that you're gonna have floating profits that you give up, because it's not actually taking a profit that makes you money, it's following your rules that make you money, right? So taking your losses and profits is what makes you money. Then you guys will also be okay with the fact that this is how markets go, right? And you can see the delivery here, very ugly. And again, this is the example of what I'm talking about, where like if this MMB moves into delivery, you're talking about a stage 2 move maybe down here, which means a management down here. And again, this trade and the gain on that trade heavily outweighs anything else. Now, again, if we took those 5 or 6RR and then this 5 or 6RR, that would have been great. It would have been a 10R gainer. But the specific rules I outlined for this specific application material, right? The point of the application material isn't to say, wow, look how much money you could have made. It's more so to say, here's how, once you have a system, you follow it and you don't give a shit about the outcome because you know the outcome over time is positive. Now, of course, if our system was a little bit different where we do take a full TP at 5RR, the overall results of this entire test would be very, very different. Or if we don't take that initial partial at 1-to-1 and we let the trade become a loser or become the very big win, where that 5RR win back there would have been 10RR, where this 7RR win could have been 14RR. We need to accept the fact that because these are the rules, this is what we're okay with, you know, with having happen. So we wait for a new distribution. It distributes down. Let's take a look at the 10-minute, make sure it's still in a clear market environment. So here's your distribution MMB. So we're clearly in a bearish market here, which is good. And I would have actually watched here. So regardless of what happens here, I will be honest about the trade, which is that this started building an MMB. The average, you know, it can easily churn over here and keep going lower. So 10-second, we watch for the flush into the buildup, which we actually have right there. So let's look at the 1 second. And in this specific case, I would wait. Breaks down, that's good. See if it goes sideways for, you know, this low is actually really nice for a sell. So I would actually take a sell through this low, probably throw the stop here, 1-to-1 it, just tick below, tick above, whatever. Still looks good. 1-to-1, if it taps us in, there we go. So it does tap us in, and we wait for the 1-to-1. And you can see, again, it's building literally a low that could be sell stopped. as we're looking at this. So if this pauses for a little bit more, I will set a sell stop here and then move this to break even. So it doesn't. Instead, it just does go. So it's fine. Look for the 1-to-1 now. On that initial position, looks like it's coming up to stop us out. Same thing, you have a low. It's taking a lot of time here. I would just take my stop loss, move it to break even, and have a sell stop set here. This looks like a loss, and there it is. Beautiful loss. So it's a second loss on the day, which means that we're still fine to trade. We can still look for another trade because 3 is what we're accepting, or 3 is what we deem acceptable as this actually is pausing like further on this MMB, so it could actually be building out a valid little trade in here. This is still that flush, and if this distributes, then there could be a valid trade in here. Let it come down right to the demand area. You know, it looks really, really nice here. Same thing as before, sell stop, throw the stop above, 1-to-1, a tick below, taps us in and taps us out. And again, even though for some of you this might not be a tap out, I'm just gonna count it as a tap out and allow all those to act as a -3R on another day. And I don't care what else really happens for the rest of the day. So that actually was the last chance to get, you know, short, and then it just, you know, it just took off and there was nothing else to do. So again, this is a market where on this given day, it doesn't look like the daily wanted to keep moving lower. Instead, if I look at the daily, right, here we are. It looks like in this case, the daily is now making that MMB here for a future time. So maybe another candle up, and then you're gonna have a nice little distribution further. So what we can do now is we can jump in here and we can continue adding to our bottom line, because that's all trading has ever been about. So let me move down so you guys can see it too. We have a 0.5 plus 2.98 plus 2.77. Then we have a 0, a -1, a 0, a -1, a -1, a -1, a 0.5, a 0.5, a -1, and a -1. So literally -1s across the board, and yet it doesn't matter, because all we've done and all we keep doing is following the rules that over time will lead to continuous gains on the account. And it is the case that the more you follow your rules, about what, how many, 80 trades or so? 108. So it looks like this doesn't go up to the right number at the moment. Oh, it doesn't? Let's check. 97. Yeah, I don't think this is going up. Wait, 97 trades? Oh, yeah. Because we don't have these in there, which is good. Yep, that all makes sense. So there we are, right? And you can see we're above the point of drawdown that we were in since the last, whatever, video or two, and we're back in normal drawdown. And take a look at even at my normal curve. Where is this? So even my normal curve in terms of performance, even recently, right? Like I've just been in pure, here we are. I've just been in pure drawdown, right? Like pure drawdown. There's nothing wrong with that. This is part of the game. But notice how the drawdown that we're experiencing now is still above even the previous point of drawdown. So going into even more continuous drawdown wouldn't even be problematic. It would be almost expected, and a good thing. Notice this area here, like we spent in this drawdown here, like 20 trades. Now we're spending another like 20 trades in drawdown. But before doing that, we reached all-time highs. And I think that was with the one trade we took today in terms of this video. So again, let your drawdowns happen. Let your wins happen. Follow the portal material, apply it, data collect your performance, and basically refine your rules to a point that makes sense to you. All right, I hope you enjoyed this one. That's number 10. Thanks, guys.